I was killed by my stepmother out of jealousy, but my spirit did not rest until justice was served. My name is Amara. I was only 10 when my world ended. But before it did, I was a girl who believed that love could fix anything. I grew up in a small town where the evenings smelled of rain and roasted corn. Our house stood at the end of a quiet street, painted a fading shade of blue, my mother's favorite color. She said it reminded her of peace. Mama was the calmest person I knew. Her voice could turn anger into silence. Her laughter could chase away fear. Every morning before school, she would tie my hair into 2 neat braids and kiss my forehead like it was a promise that she'd always be there. She kept that promise, even after death. I remember the day she died, though Papa said I shouldn't. She'd been sick for weeks, lying in that small room filled with the smell of medicine and worry. I'd sit by her bed, holding her hand, tracing the blue veins on her skin. "Amara," she whispered one night, her breath shallow but her eyes warm. "Never let the world harden your heart. Even when it hurts, stay kind." I nodded, not really understanding. But her words became something I carried, like a small stone in my pocket, even when the world grew cruel. After she was gone, the house changed. The walls felt empty. Papa stopped laughing, and I learned that silence could be louder than any scream. I tried to be strong for him. I'd sweep the floor before he came home, help in the kitchen, and wait by the window each evening just to wave when I saw his car. Sometimes he smiled back, sometimes he didn't. But even in his sadness, I saw love, a quiet, broken kind of love that made me want to protect him. Sometimes, late at night, I'd whisper into the dark, "Mama, please help Papa smile again." I didn't know she was listening. I didn't know she would answer that prayer, just not in the way I expected. Then one Sunday, Papa came home with a woman. She wore red lipstick, gold earrings that jingled when she moved, and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "This is Auntie Rose," Papa said. "She's my friend." She bent down, her perfume sharp and sweet, and said, "You're even prettier than your father described." I smiled shyly. But somewhere deep inside, something cold whispered, "Be careful." I didn't listen to that voice. I should have. Pause in narration. Soft, haunting instrumental begins to rise. If I had known that the same hands that stroked my hair would one day pour the poison that ended my life, maybe I would have prayed for something different. Maybe I would have prayed for peace instead of love. After Mama's death, our house changed in ways I couldn't explain. It wasn't just the silence, it was the way it settled into everything. The walls stopped echoing laughter. The kitchen lost its smell of fried plantain and warm stew. Even the air felt heavy, like the house itself was mourning. Papa tried his best. He still woke up early for work, still ironed his shirts, still called me my little sunshine. But his eyes had lost something. The spark that once danced there had gone out. Every evening, I waited by the window for him to come home. I'd press my face against the cold glass, watching the streetlights flicker to life. When I saw his car turn the corner, I'd run to the door, ready to hug him. Sometimes he smiled, but most times he'd just pat my head, mutter a tired good girl, and disappear into his room. I missed the old Papa, the one who told bedtime stories and let me sit on his lap while he read the newspaper. The one who used to chase me around the compound, pretending to be a lion. But grief changes people. Even at 10, I could tell. So I tried to fill the space Mama left behind. I swept the sitting room before he came home. I washed the plates carefully, afraid to break even one. And every Sunday I arranged fresh flowers by Mama's picture frame, roses, her favorite. Maybe that's why I didn't hate Auntie Rose the first time she came. It was a Sunday afternoon. The sky was gray, and Papa had gone to church without me because I'd caught a cold. I was sitting on the sofa when I heard a soft knock on the door. When I opened it, there she was, smiling, wearing a red dress and golden earrings that jingled when she moved. "Hello, dear," she said sweetly. "You must be Amara." I nodded. She smelled of perfume, strong, sharp, like something pretending to be sweet. Your father sent me ahead, she said, stepping inside before I could speak. He told me you were a lovely girl. She sat down like she'd lived here all her life, her eyes scanning the room, stopping briefly at Mama's picture. Then she smiled again, wider this time. You look just like her, she said softly. Beautiful. I didn't know what to say, so I smiled back. When Papa came home, he was surprised to see us sitting together. Ah, so you've met, he said, his voice lighter than it had been in months. He looked happy, happier than I'd seen him since Mama died. That night, they laughed together while I sat in my room, listening through the thin walls. Her laughter was loud, too loud, and sometimes it sounded like she was forcing it. Still, when Papa tucked me into bed, I told him, she's nice. He smiled and kissed my forehead. I'm glad you think so, my sunshine. For the first time in a long while, I fell asleep feeling safe. But the days that followed began to change things. Slowly, quietly. Rose started visiting more often. She brought me small gifts, ribbons for my hair, shiny bangles, sweet biscuits. She'd hug me, and her perfume would fill my nose until I almost couldn't breathe. She called me my daughter, even before Papa asked her to. At first, I liked it. It felt nice to have a woman in the house again. She brushed my hair before school, helped me pick my clothes, and told me stories about her childhood. But there were moments, tiny moments, that didn't feel right. Like how her smile faded whenever Papa hugged me. Or how her eyes lingered too long on Mama's framed picture. Once, I caught her dusting the frame, and she muttered something under her breath before setting it down a little too hard. Another day, I found one of Mama's old scarves in the trash. It still smelled faintly of lavender. When I showed it to Rose, she smiled and said, "Oh, I thought it was old and dirty, dear. You don't need to keep everything from the past." But Mama was the past. She was my whole world. I started to notice other things too. Papa didn't spend as much time with me anymore. If I tried to talk to him, Rose would always appear. "Let her rest, darling," she'd say softly. "She's a child. You've had a long day." He'd nod and walk away. Soon, she stopped knocking before entering my room. She'd stand by the doorway, watching me quietly. Sometimes she'd say nothing, just smile and walk away. Other times, she'd say things like, "You're lucky your father loves you so much." Or, "You remind him too much of your mother. Maybe that's why he can't move on." I didn't understand what she meant then. I only knew her voice carried something sharp beneath the sweetness. But she was always kind to Papa, always smiling, always gentle, especially when he was watching. She became a shadow in our home. And like a shadow, she grew darker when the lights went out. Papa married Rose on a hot afternoon in December. The church was full, but I remember feeling alone. Everyone smiled and clapped as they exchanged vows, but I couldn't. I sat in the front row, holding the hem of my yellow dress, wishing Mama could walk through the door and tell everyone to stop. Rose looked beautiful, her dress glittered like the sun, her smile brighter than the lights hanging over the altar. But when her eyes met mine, that smile changed. It softened, yes, but not in a kind way. It was the kind of smile that hides something sharp behind it. After the wedding, she bent down to hug me. Her perfume filled my head again, too sweet, too thick. "Now we're family," she whispered. "Isn't that wonderful?" I nodded. I didn't want to make Papa sad. The first few weeks were peaceful enough. Rose cooked every night, filled the house with her laughter, and even convinced Papa to repaint the living room. She told him the old color was too gloomy. The day the painters came, she told me to move my mother's framed photo from the wall. I held it close to my chest, afraid they'd stain it. When I turned around, Rose was watching me with that same cold smile. "You don't have to hold on so tightly, Amara," she said. "The past can make it hard to move forward." I didn't reply, but that night I placed Mama's photo by my bed, just in case someone decided to move it again. Rose began to change after that, or maybe she just stopped pretending. She started taking charge of everything, what I ate, when I slept, even the clothes I wore. When Papa wasn't home, Her voice changed too. Cold, sharp. Didn't I tell you not to touch that? Why are you looking at me like that? Children should be seen, not heard. But when Papa came home, she was all smiles again. She'd sit on his lap, call him darling, and talk about how much she loved me. She's such a bright girl, she'd say, her hand resting lightly on my shoulder. We're bonding so well. I'd nod quietly while she squeezed my shoulder just a little too hard. One afternoon, I came home from school and found her in my room. She was holding Mama's old scarf, the one with tiny blue flowers. Oh, I was just cleaning, she said quickly when she saw me. This old thing must be full of dust. I reached for it, but she pulled it back for a moment. You really love your mother, don't you? Yes, I said softly. She smiled faintly. Well, she's gone, dear. You should start loving the people who are still here. Then she handed it over and walked out. The scarf smelled faintly of lavender and smoke. Not long after that, Papa started working later hours. Sometimes he didn't come home until long after I'd fallen asleep. When I asked why, he sighed. Your stepmother worries I'm overworking, he said, but I have to provide for this family. That word, stepmother, tasted strange in my mouth. Rose started packing his lunch, choosing his shirts, even answering his phone sometimes. She laughed at his jokes, served him food before he asked, and always made sure he saw her being kind to me. But when he wasn't around, she hardly looked at me. Then came the first nightmare. I was standing in our kitchen. The lights were off, but I could see the faint outline of Mama near the window. She was wearing the same dress she died in, pale and soft, glowing faintly. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. When I took a step toward her, her eyes filled with tears. Then she shook her head slowly, lifted one hand, and pointed behind me. I turned and saw Rose standing there, her face blank, holding a cup of tea. I woke up gasping. My room was dark, but the air was freezing cold. The window rattled even though it wasn't windy outside. From the hallway, I heard soft footsteps. Slow, careful. Stopping right outside my door. I pulled the blanket over my head and squeezed my eyes shut. The doorknob turned just once, then silence. The next morning, Rose was already in the kitchen, humming as she poured tea. Good morning, sleepyhead, she said cheerfully. You look pale, did you sleep well? I nodded, even though my heart was still pounding. She handed me a cup. Drink this, it'll warm you up. The steam rose between us, carrying that same sharp perfume smell. I stared at the tea, dark, too dark. Something in me whispered, don't drink it. I set the cup down slowly. It's too hot, I murmured. She smiled without blinking. Oh, it'll cool down soon. That was the first morning. I didn't finish what she gave me. And the first morning, I noticed how her smile didn't reach her eyes anymore. After that morning, I started noticing little things that didn't make sense. Rose's laughter didn't sound the same anymore. It was sharper, quicker, as if she was always forcing it. And Papa, he laughed less. He used to hum on his way to work, but now he mostly stayed quiet, answering in short words, avoiding long talks. The house began to feel like a stranger's home. Furniture moved around without me touching them. Curtains I liked were replaced with new ones, thick and red. The smell of Mama's lavender oil was gone, replaced by Rose's heavy perfume that clung to every corner. Sometimes I would come home from school and find my drawings missing from the fridge. She said they were childish, Papa told me once, trying to smile. She wants to make the house look more grown-up. I nodded, pretending not to care, but inside I did, because it felt like she was slowly erasing every trace of Mama and me. Rose began calling me by my full name now. Amarachi. Never Amara, the way Mama used to say it, soft like a song. When I forgot to do something, even something small, she would sigh loudly and shake her head. Your mother spoiled you, didn't she? That's why you're careless. Once I dropped a glass of water while setting the table. The sound of it shattering made me freeze. Rose didn't shout, but she looked at me in a way that made my chest tighten. You're just like her, she whispered, always breaking things. I wanted to ask what she meant, but she turned away, humming as if she hadn't said anything at all. Papa didn't see these moments. Whenever he was around, Rose became gentle again, offering to brush my hair, serving my favorite meal, even asking about school. She's been such a help, darling, she'd say, smiling at Papa. You're lucky to have such a sweet daughter. And Papa would beam proudly, looking at both of us like we were the perfect family. But when he wasn't looking, her eyes turned cold. There were nights I heard whispers in the hallway, soft, like someone talking to themselves. At first, I thought it was Papa on the phone, but the voice was too low, too secret. One night, I got up quietly and followed the sound. It was coming from the living room. Rose stood near the window, her phone pressed to her ear. Yes, she said, her tone sharp. He's beginning to trust me completely. A pause. No, the girl doesn't suspect anything. She's just a child. I stepped back too fast, my heel hitting the corner of the stool. The sound made her turn. Who's there? She snapped. I ran before she could see me, heart pounding in my chest. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. She even made pancakes for breakfast. But as she set my plate down, her eyes met mine briefly. There was no smile this time. Curiosity, she said softly, almost like she was speaking to herself, can be dangerous. From that day, I stopped walking around at night. But the house didn't stop whispering. Sometimes, I'd hear footsteps in Mama's old room, even though it had been locked for months. Other times, the radio would turn on by itself, playing her favorite gospel song before going silent again. Once, I woke up and found a single white flower on my pillow. The same kind Mama used to plant in our backyard. I held it close, tears stinging my eyes. Mama, I whispered, are you here? The window rattled gently, though there was no wind. And for the first time, I didn't feel afraid. I felt protected. But peace never stayed long in that house. It always left when Rose entered the room. Papa started changing too. Not all at once. It happened slowly, like how daylight fades before night. You don't notice the darkness until it's already around you. At first, it was small things. He stopped asking about my day. He stopped checking my homework. When I tried to hug him after work, he'd smile but gently push me away, saying, "Go and help your stepmother in the kitchen. She needs you." But in the kitchen, Rose didn't want me there. She'd glance at me over her shoulder and say, "You'll just get in the way, dear. Go read your books instead." So I'd go to my room and read, listening to them laugh together in the sitting room. Their laughter used to make me happy. Now it made my stomach ache. One evening, Papa called me while I was in bed. "Amara," he said, his voice tired but firm, "your stepmother says you've been avoiding her. Is that true?" My heart jumped. "No, Papa, He raised a hand. "She's trying, Amara. You should be grateful. You know how lonely I've been." I nodded, blinking back tears. He didn't notice. He never noticed anymore. When I went back to my room that night, I saw that Mama's photograph had been moved again. It wasn't on my bedside table where I'd left it. It was lying face down on the floor. I picked it up and whispered, "I didn't do anything wrong, Mama. I promise." The lights flickered twice, and the window creaked softly. Weeks passed, and the distance between Papa and me grew wider. Rose began sitting beside him at dinner, while I sat across the table. Sometimes when I spoke, she'd interrupt with a laugh or a sigh, making my words seem silly. One night, Papa mentioned how tired he'd been at work, and Rose turned to him with that soft, pitying voice she used only for him. "You'd rest better if the house were calmer. Children can be noisy sometimes. She doesn't mean to, of course." Papa sighed and looked at me, his eyes weary. "Try not to trouble her, okay, Amara?" I nodded, but inside I felt something crumble, a small, fragile piece of my heart. The dreams began again. Mama came to me more clearly this time. She stood by my bed, her face half in light, half in shadow. "Amara," she said, her voice echoing softly. Don't drink what she gives you. Don't trust her smiles. I sat up, trembling. Mama, what do you mean? But she was already fatting, her figure breaking into 1,000 silver pieces before vanishing. I woke up drenched in sweat. The night was silent, too silent. Even the crickets were gone. Then, from the hallway, I heard the soft creak of the stairs. Step. 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 They stopped right outside my room. I held my breath. A moment later, the door handle moved, slowly, carefully, and then stopped. After a long silence, I heard her voice. Amara, Rose whispered through the door. Are you awake? I couldn't speak. She waited a few seconds, then chuckled quietly. Good girl, she murmured, and her footsteps faded away. By morning, Papa told me he'd be traveling for 2 days. He kissed my forehead and said, Be good for your stepmother. I wanted to tell him not to go. I wanted to say that the house felt different when he wasn't there. But the words never made it past my lips. Rose stood by the door, waving as he left. When his car disappeared down the road, she turned to me. The smile she gave me then wasn't one I'd ever seen before. It was cold, empty, and full of something that made my skin crawl. Well, she said softly, her eyes narrowing, looks like it's just the two of us now. The first few hours after Papa left were quiet. Too quiet. I sat in the parlor, pretending to read, though the words on the page made no sense. Rose was in the kitchen humming softly, not the cheerful kind of hum she used when Papa was home, but something low and strange, like she was speaking to herself through the sound. After a while, she came out and said, Aren't you hungry, dear? I nodded, though my stomach was tight with unease. She brought me food, rice and stew, and smiled. Eat well, she said. Your father wants you strong. But when I picked up my spoon, she stayed there watching me. Her eyes didn't blink. Just watched. I swallowed the first bite, forcing myself to chew slowly. When I looked up again, she was still smiling, but the corners of her lips didn't match her eyes. I pushed the plate away. I'm not so hungry anymore. Her voice sharpened. You're wasting food now. Do you know how hard I worked for that? I'm sorry, I whispered. Her smile returned. Oh no, darling, don't apologize. Then she leaned closer, her breath warm against my ear. Just remember that disobedience is ugly, and I don't like ugly things in my house. My heart beat so hard I could hear it in my ears. That night I sat in my room, the air heavy with silence. The wind outside moaned against the windows, but inside the house everything felt still, dead still. I tried to pray, but the words tangled in my throat. Then I saw it, Mama's photo, now sitting upright again, though I hadn't touched it. A whisper brushed past my ear. You are not alone. I jumped and turned. No one was there. But in the mirror across from me, I saw something not clearly, but enough. A faint outline of a woman standing behind me, her head bowed. When I blinked, it was gone. The next morning, Rose made breakfast but didn't call me to eat. I came out and saw only one plate on the table, hers. You didn't call me, I said softly. She didn't look up. Maybe you were too tired to eat. Maybe you don't need food today. I stood there quietly, unsure if she was joking. Go clean the veranda, she added, her voice calm but cold. And after that, scrub the bathroom tiles. I want them shining. I hesitated, but I have schoolwork. The spoon hit the table with a loud clink. I flinched. Her eyes met mine, sharp and narrow. Do I look like I care about that nonsense? She hissed. Go, now. I ran. As I cleaned, I heard her talking on the phone, low and hurried. I couldn't hear everything, but one sentence stuck out like a thorn. He'll sign the papers soon. Once the girl, out of the way, everything's mine. My hands froze. The sponge slipped from my fingers. What did she mean, out of the way? I backed away from the bathroom door, heart pounding, trying to make sense of it. Maybe she didn't mean me. Maybe she was talking about someone else. But deep down, I knew. That night, Mama came again, stronger this time. She didn't smile. "Amara," she said, her voice trembling. "She means harm. You must not be alone with her." I started crying. "But Papa isn't here, Mama. I can't go anywhere." Her image flickered like light on water. "Then listen to me. Do not eat, do not drink, and if you feel weak, call my name." The air grew cold. I could see my breath fogging up. "Mama, will you stay with me?" I whispered. Her voice softened. "Always." By morning, I thought maybe it was all a dream, until I saw the breakfast tray by my door. A glass of pap and a small plate of akara. It looked perfect. Too perfect. Rose's voice floated from the parlor. "Eat, darling. I made it special for you." My hands trembled as I picked up the tray. The pap smelled sweet, too sweet. Then I remembered Mama's words. So I carried the tray outside and poured it behind the hibiscus flowers. When I came back inside, Rose was standing at the doorway, watching me. Her eyes flicked to the empty tray, then back to me. "You finished it?" she asked. I nodded. Her smile widened, slow and strange. "Good girl." Then she walked away, humming that same eerie tune. That night, Mama's whisper came again. But this time, it was stronger. "Justice will come, my child, but first, you must endure." And I cried softly into my pillow, because I didn't know how much more I could endure. The first few hours after Papa left were quiet. Too quiet. I sat in the parlor, pretending to read, though the words on the page made no sense. Rose was in the kitchen humming softly, not the cheerful kind of hum she used when Papa was home, but something low and strange, like she was speaking to herself through the sound. After a while, she came out and said, "Aren't you hungry, dear?" I nodded, though my stomach was tight with unease. She brought me food, rice and stew, and smiled. "Eat well," she said. "Your father wants you strong." But when I picked up my spoon, she stayed there watching me. Her eyes didn't blink. Just watched. I swallowed the first bite, forcing myself to chew slowly. When I looked up again, she was still smiling, but the corners of her lips didn't match her eyes. I pushed the plate away. "I'm not so hungry anymore." Her voice sharpened. "You're wasting food now. Do you know how hard I worked for that?" "I'm sorry," I whispered. Her smile returned. "Oh no, darling, don't apologize." Then she leaned closer, her breath warm against my ear. "Just remember that disobedience is ugly, and I don't like ugly things in my house." My heart beat so hard I could hear it in my ears. That night I sat in my room, the air heavy with silence. The wind outside moaned against the windows, but inside the house everything felt still, dead still. I tried to pray, but the words tangled in my throat. Then I saw it, Mama's photo, now sitting upright again, though I hadn't touched it. A whisper brushed past my ear. "You are not alone." I jumped and turned. No one was there. But in the mirror across from me, I saw something not clearly, but enough. A faint outline of a woman standing behind me, her head bowed. When I blinked, it was gone. The next morning, Rose made breakfast but didn't call me to eat. I came out and saw only one plate on the table, hers. "You didn't call me," I said softly. She didn't look up. "Maybe you were too tired to eat. Maybe you don't need food today." I stood there quietly, unsure if she was joking. "Go clean the veranda," she added, her voice calm but cold. "And after that, scrub the bathroom tiles. I want them shining." I hesitated, but I have schoolwork. The spoon hit the table with a loud clink. I flinched. Her eyes met mine, sharp and narrow. "Do I look like I care about that nonsense?" she hissed. "Go, now." I ran. As I cleaned, I heard her talking on the phone, low and hurried. I couldn't hear everything, but one sentence stuck out like a thorn. "He'll sign the papers soon. Once the girl out of the way, everything's mine." My hands froze. The sponge slipped from my fingers. What did she mean? Out of the way. I backed away from the bathroom door, heart pounding, trying to make sense of it. Maybe she didn't mean me. Maybe she was talking about someone else. But deep down, I knew. That night, Mama came again, stronger this time. She didn't smile. "Amara," she said, her voice trembling. "She means harm. You must not be alone with her." I started crying. "But Papa isn't here, Mama. I can't go anywhere." Her image flickered like light on water. "Then listen to me. Do not eat, do not drink, and if you feel weak, call my name." The air grew cold. I could see my breath fogging up. "Mama, will you stay with me?" I whispered. Her voice softened. "Always." By morning, I thought maybe it was all a dream, until I saw the breakfast tray by my door. A glass of pap and a small plate of akara. It looked perfect. Too perfect. Rose's voice floated from the parlor. "Eat, darling. I made it special for you." My hands trembled as I picked up the tray. The pap smelled sweet, too sweet. Then I remembered Mama's words. So I carried the tray outside and poured it behind the hibiscus flowers. When I came back inside, Rose was standing at the doorway, watching me. Her eyes flicked to the empty tray, then back to me. "You finished it?" she asked. I nodded. Her smile widened, slow and strange. "Good girl." Then she walked away, humming that same eerie tune. That night, Mama's whisper came again. But this time, it was stronger. "Justice will come, my child, but first, you must endure." And I cried softly into my pillow, because I didn't know how much more I could endure. When Papa returned, I thought things would go back to normal. I thought his smile would chase away the cold that had settled into the house. But I was wrong. He hugged Rose first. He always did now. Then he looked at me, a quick glance, more tired than warm, and said, "You've grown quiet, Amara. Are you behaving yourself?" I nodded. Rose's hand was resting lightly on his arm. "She's been trying," she said sweetly, "but there's something strange about her lately." Papa frowned. "Strange." Rose sighed, like someone who hated to say what she must. "She talks to herself, sometimes at night. I hear her whispering to empty air. I'm worried, darling. I think she's missing her mother too much." Papa looked at me again. "Is that true?" My voice caught in my throat. "No, Papa, I was just—" Rose gently cut in, her voice calm and patient. "She told me she sees her mother in dreams. That's not normal for a child her age, is it?" Papa's face hardened. "You should stop imagining things, Amara," he said. "You're making your stepmother uneasy." My chest tightened. I wanted to scream that she was lying, that Mama was there, but one look at Papa's face told me it wouldn't matter. So I said nothing. That night, Rose made pepper soup for dinner. The smell filled the house, warm and rich. Papa ate happily, laughing at her jokes, but when she offered me a bowl, I hesitated. "I'm not hungry," I murmured. Her smile froze. "Not hungry again." Papa looked up. "Amara, don't be rude." "She's not being rude," Rose said softly. "Just stubborn." Then she leaned toward me, her eyes sharp like broken glass. "Eat, dear. You'll hurt my feelings if you don't." I picked up the spoon. My hands trembled. But just before I tasted it, I heard the faintest whisper right in my ear. "Don't." The spoon slipped, spilling soup on the tablecloth. Papa sighed loudly. "For heaven's sake, Amara, can't you do anything right?" "I'm sorry," I stammered. Rose quickly stood, dabbing the stain with a napkin. "Don't shout at her, darling," she said gently. "It's not her fault, she's troubled." Her words slid through the air like poison wrapped in silk. After dinner, Papa went to his study. I stayed in my room, trying not to cry. A while later, I heard them talking downstairs. Rose's voice was low but urgent. "I'm worried, truly. Sometimes she stares at me with such hatred. I'm afraid she might harm herself." Papa sighed. "She's just a child." I know, but grief can twist the mind. You need to take her to the church. Let them pray for her. There was a pause. Then Papa said softly, I'll speak to the pastor. My blood went cold. She was winning. Days passed, and everything I did became wrong. If I forgot to greet her, I was rude. If I greeted her too softly, I was mocking. If I smiled, she'd say, What are you so happy about? If I stayed quiet, she'd whisper, You're plotting something, aren't you? She told Papa I'd broken a plate. I hadn't. She told him I shouted at her. I hadn't. And every lie made him look at me with more distance in his eyes. Soon, he started locking his study door when I walked by. He told me to spend more time praying. I did. But the prayers felt like they fell into a hole too deep for God to hear. One afternoon, Rose came to my room holding Mama's photo frame. Where did you get this? She asked, her voice calm but cold. It's mine, I said quickly. Papa gave it to me. She smiled faintly. You don't need it anymore. Before I could speak, she smashed it against the wall. The glass shattered, scattering across the floor like pieces of my heart. I screamed, Why did you do that? Her eyes gleamed. Because she's dead, Amara, gone, and you need to stop pretending she's not. Then she turned and left, humming her usual haunting tune. I fell to my knees, trying to gather the broken glass, but my hands trembled so much that I cut my finger. Blood dotted the carpet. The wound stung, but the pain didn't come from it. It came from somewhere deeper, somewhere that words couldn't reach. That night, Mama came again. She was weeping. My child, she said, she's turning him against you, but truth will not sleep forever, be strong. I wanted to ask when the truth would wake, but she was already fatting, her face vanishing into the dim light. And I sat alone in the dark, holding my bandaged hand, whispering, I'm trying, Mama, I'm trying. The following Sunday, Papa took me to church. He didn't say much on the way, just kept glancing at me from time to time, as if I'd become a stranger he couldn't understand. The pastor met us after service, a tall man with a soft smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He placed his hand on my head and said, Your father tells me you've been seeing things, my child. I didn't know what to say. I looked at Papa, but he only nodded, urging me to speak. I see my mother, I whispered. In dreams, sometimes when I'm awake too. The pastor frowned. And what does she say? She warns me. She says I'm not safe. He looked at Papa. You were right to bring her. The spirit of the dead has attached itself to her. It's not her mother anymore. Rose gasped softly, perfectly timed. Oh, dear Lord. Papa's hand tightened around mine. Can you help her, Pastor? Of course, the pastor said, but she must stay away from mirrors. Evil reflects itself there. Rose nodded eagerly. I've always felt something strange about her room. I'll make sure of it. I stared at them, my heart twisting. No one was listening. They all thought Mama was the evil one. When we got home, Rose removed every mirror from my room, even the small one on my dressing table. She said it was for my good. But the room felt emptier without it, like part of me had been erased. For the next few days, she made me pray every morning and night. Her prayers weren't kind. They were loud, sharp, and full of anger. She shouted verses about obedience and cursed, lying spirits. I cried silently beside her, wondering if God could even hear through so much hate. Then one night, I heard a voice, not Mama's, but Papa. He and Rose were in the sitting room. She's not improving, he said, his voice weary. I'm thinking of sending her to the village for a while. Maybe Mama's sister can. No, Rose interrupted quickly. She'll spread her sickness there too. Let the pastor finish the deliverance here. She just needs more time. There was a pause. Then she added softly, You've done enough, darling. You need to rest. Let me take care of her. Papa sighed. All right, I trust you. The sound of those words made my stomach twist. The next morning, I found my door locked from the outside. I knocked gently. Stepmother. No answer. I waited. Minutes passed. Then I heard her footsteps, slow and deliberate. When the lock turned, she appeared in the doorway holding a tray. "Breakfast," she said, her tone unreadable. There was pap again, and plantain. My throat went dry. "I'm not hungry," I whispered. Her eyes hardened. "Your father says you must eat. Do you want him to think you're possessed?" I froze. She smiled faintly. "Good, eat it, then rest. You'll need your strength." Her hand lingered on the tray before she left. I stared at the food for a long time. The pap was steaming slightly, the smell sweet, too sweet again. So I did what Mama had taught me. I waited until I was sure Rose was gone, then poured it quietly out the window, into the soil beneath the hibiscus flowers. When I looked down, I noticed something strange. The flowers were dying. Their petals, once bright red, were turning brown around the edges. My chest tightened. I whispered, "Mama." The air around me grew cold, and for a moment I thought I heard her sigh. That evening, Rose told Papa I'd refuse to eat again. "She'll die if this continues," she said, pretending to wipe a tear. She even talks to herself when I walk past her room. Papa rubbed his forehead. "I don't know what to do anymore." "You can pray," Rose said softly, "but sometimes prayers need action." "What do you mean?" She hesitated, just enough to look innocent. "Maybe a little discipline. Maybe she needs to fear you to obey." "Rose." "I'm only saying it out of love," she whispered. "You can't let her destroy herself, or us." Later that night, I heard them arguing. Papa's voice was low but angry. "She's just a child." And then Rose, cold and calm. "She's not your child anymore, can't you see? She's her mother's spirit, come back to ruin this house." Silence followed. Then footsteps. I lay in bed, heart pounding, pretending to sleep as my door creaked open. It was Papa. He stood there for a long moment, breathing heavily, before turning away. The sound of his footsteps retreating down the hallway broke something inside me. He didn't even say goodnight. That was the night Mama came to me one last time. Her face was pale and sad, her eyes glowing softly. "My darling Amara," she said, "I have fought for you as much as I can, but now you must prepare. She will not rest until she has done what she came to do." Tears spilled down my cheeks. "Then don't leave me, Mama. Please don't leave me." "I will never leave," she whispered. "Even in death you will not be forgotten. Justice will come. You must believe that." The room filled with wind, though the windows were closed. Mama's image flickered, then vanished, leaving behind a faint smell of her perfume, the one she always wore on Sundays. And I knew. The end was close. The darkness swallowed us both. I could barely breathe. My wrist still burned where she had grabbed me. I tried to run, but she caught me again, her nails digging deep into my arm. "You think your dead mother can save you," she hissed. "She's gone, and soon you'll join her." "Please," I cried, but she slapped me. The sound cracked through the silence. Then I saw it, the small glass cup on the table beside her. At first I thought it was just water, but the smell was strange, sharp, bitter. She lifted it slowly, her eyes shining like fire. "Your father said you should drink this before bed," she said sweetly. "For your stomach." I shook my head, stepping back. "Papa never said that." Her smile didn't fade. "Oh, but he did. You don't want to make him angry, do you?" My lips trembled. My throat felt dry. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Mama's voice whispered faintly in my ear, "Don't drink it." But Rose moved too quickly. She gripped my chin and forced the rim of the cup to my lips. The liquid burned. I coughed, choked. It was bitter, metallic. I tried to push her hand away, but she was stronger. When she finally let go, I fell to the floor, gasping. The room spun. My chest hurt, my vision blurred. Rose knelt beside me, her voice calm now. "SHH, it's all right, just sleep. It'll all be over soon." Her face was the last thing I saw, half lit by the dying candle, smiling. Then everything went dark. When I opened my eyes again, I was standing by my body. It was lying still on the cold floor, my small hands curled at my side. Rose stood over me, breathing hard, her expression suddenly breaking, guilt, fear, madness all at once. She whispered something, I couldn't hear what. Then she turned and ran. That was how she killed me, with poison, with jealousy, and with lies. But that night, something else was born too, me, the spirit that refused to rest. I didn't go far after I died. Even though my body was buried under the pawpaw tree, my spirit lingered in the house. Something tied me there, something stronger than fear, heavier than sadness. Maybe it was the way Rose had looked into my eyes as she forced the poison down. Maybe it was Mama's last whisper, "Be brave, my child." Whatever it was, I couldn't rest. The first night after my death, she slept soundly. Her face was peaceful, like she thought it was all over. But I watched her from the corner of the room, from the quiet shadow where the candlelight didn't reach. At midnight, I whispered her name. Rose. She stirred, turning in her sleep. Her eyes fluttered open. She looked around, saw nothing, and pulled the blanket tighter. But I saw her heart beating fast under her skin. The next night, I whispered again, louder this time. Rose, why did you do it? She sat up quickly, gasping. Who's there? She called out. Her voice trembled. I didn't answer. I only let the wind move through the curtains and the candle flicker out. She screamed, waking Papa, but when he came, there was only silence. That was how it began. She started hearing footsteps, soft, light, the way I used to walk. She would turn, expecting to see me standing there with my plaited hair and white nightdress. But she saw only emptiness. At first, she tried to convince herself it was her imagination. She hummed hymns while cooking, played music to drown me out. But I was always there, in the clinking of her spoons, in the creak of the doors, in the hush of the wind that called my name. Sometimes, when she looked into the mirror, she'd see a small handprint appear beside her reflection, my hand. Other times, my laughter would echo faintly from the backyard, where she buried me. The pawpaw tree began to wither. Its leaves turned brown even when it rained. Every night, she would hear my voice whisper from its roots. You thought I would sleep, Rose, but I can't. She would rush outside with a lantern, her hair loose, her feet bare, digging around the soil as if she could find me and silence me forever. But I was already everywhere. Days became weeks, and her eyes lost their rest. She stopped eating. She stopped smiling when Papa spoke to her. Sometimes she would sit by the window for hours, whispering to herself. I would stand behind her reflection and whisper too. You took my life, give it back. At night, when she tried to pray, her candle would go out. When she lit another, I would whisper through the flame. God saw everything. Her tears began to fall freely, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. Justice wasn't only for me, it was for Mama, for the peace she never got to keep. Soon, Rose began to speak to me. Amara, she would cry into the darkness, I'm sorry, please forgive me. But I couldn't answer. Forgiveness was not mine to give. Only truth could set her free. And until she spoke it, until she told the world what she had done, I would not stop haunting her. I would stay in every shadow she feared, in every silence that followed her name. Because my spirit did not rest. It could not rest. Not until justice came. It didn't take long before fear began to eat her alive. Every corner of the house carried my voice. Every quiet moment belonged to me. She couldn't hide from it. Not behind locked doors, not in the light of day. When she walked through the hallway, I followed softly behind her, bare feet brushing the tiles. Sometimes she'd turn suddenly, clutching her chest, whispering, Amara, please stop this. But I didn't stop. At dawn, she'd wake to find her bedsheets pulled halfway to the floor, as if small hands had tugged at them while she slept. At dusk, her reflection in the mirror would smile a heartbeat too late. The clocks would stop at the same hour I died. She tried to leave once. packed her things, and ran toward the gate before sunrise. But when she reached the road, every car she waved down ignored her. The drivers couldn't even see her. And when she looked back, the house stood still, waiting with my shadow in the window. She went back inside. Papa began to worry. She spoke less and less. Her eyes looked distant, hollow, like she was listening to something no one else could hear. And she was. I made sure of it. When she cooked, the pot lids would rattle. When she prayed, her Bible pages would flip on their own until they stopped at verses about guilt and truth. And when she tried to sleep, I would hum softly, the same lullaby Mama used to sing for me before bed. She'd wake up crying, her voice shaking. "Stop, please stop singing that." But I sang it again and again. One night, the house fell silent after a long rain. Papa was asleep. Rose sat alone in the living room, her hands trembling over a cup of tea. I stood behind her. My reflection shimmered faintly in the glass of the window, my pale face, my hair still tied in the ribbons she once bought me. She felt it. Her hand froze midway to her lips. "You're here again," she whispered. I didn't answer. She turned slowly, her eyes wide. The cup slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. Her voice broke. "What do you want from me?" The room grew cold. The candle beside her flickered, bending toward my presence. Then I whispered, not angry, not cruel, just steady like the truth itself. "I want what you took. I want peace." She pressed her hands to her ears, shaking her head. "No, no, please," I said, "I'm sorry." "Then prove it," I whispered. "Tell them." She fell to her knees, sobbing into her palms. But even then, I didn't leave. I couldn't, because every lie she kept alive kept me here too. After that night, she stopped trying to hide. She began talking to me in the open, whispering to empty rooms, apologizing to thin air. The neighbors started to talk. They said the house was cursed. They said Rose had lost her mind. Maybe she had. Or maybe she was just beginning to face what she'd done. And as her fear grew, my voice became clearer. No longer just a whisper, sometimes a breath on her neck, sometimes a faint hum behind her shoulder. Sometimes, when she looked into the garden, she would see me standing under the pawpaw tree, staring quietly back at her. She'd freeze, too afraid to blink. And then I would fade, leaving only the sound of my small voice carried by the wind. "Justice, Rose, justice." The nights began to stretch longer than the days. Sometimes the moon would stay too long above the roof, watching, as though it wanted to see how far Rose would fall before she broke. She barely spoke to Papa anymore. He'd leave for work, and she'd stay in her room, curtains drawn, eyes swollen, whispering things only I could hear. I was always there. When she looked into the mirror, I would move behind her. When she closed her eyes, I would breathe her name. At first, she begged for mercy. Then she began to bargain. "I'll do anything," she'd whisper into the air. "Just stop following me." But I didn't follow her. I lived inside her fear. One evening, she tried to wash away my presence. She filled a bucket with water and sprinkled salt into it, muttering prayers under her breath. Then she walked through the house, splashing it on the walls, the doors, the floor, anywhere she thought I might be hiding. The moment she poured the last bowl of water, I made the window slam shut. The candle light went out. And in the dark, I whispered softly, "You can't wash away blood, Rose." She screamed. The bowl dropped, shattering beside her feet. The water spread across the floor like tears. After that, she began sleeping with all the lights on. But the light couldn't save her. It only made her see me more clearly. One night, she looked up and saw me sitting at the foot of her bed, legs crossed, head tilted. My eyes glowed faintly, not in anger but in sorrow. She froze, unable to breathe. "Go away," she whispered. I didn't move. "What do you want from me?" I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said softly, "I want the truth." Her lips trembled, I told you I'm sorry. But not the world, tell them. She covered her ears and began to sob. When she looked up again, I was gone, but the bed was wet where I'd sat, soaked with the coldness of my presence. The house grew restless. Objects began to move on their own, the picture frames turning upside down, the doors swinging open in the middle of the night. Once, she found the cup she had used to poison me, the same glass, placed neatly on her pillow when she woke. She threw it away that morning. By evening, it was back. Her screams filled the house so often that the neighbors began to stay away. They said she was possessed. But she was. She was only being reminded. Sometimes I would hum softly in the kitchen, and she would drop whatever she was holding. Sometimes I'd whisper to Papa's sleeping mind, guiding his dreams toward the truth. Sometimes I'd knock gently on Rose's door until she woke in panic, whispering through the crack. You can end this, Rose, just speak. But she never did. She only cried, rocking herself until the morning light returned. Weeks turned into months, and her reflection began to betray her. She'd stand before the mirror, brushing her hair, and see my small figure staring back, just beside her shoulder, always silent. Sometimes, my reflection smiled when hers didn't. She smashed every mirror in the house after that. But mirrors aren't the only things that reflect guilt. Even in the window's glass, I waited. Even in her dreams, I stood behind her. She couldn't escape. Because the dead don't forget. And I, Amara, the girl she killed, would not stop haunting her until the world heard the truth she buried beneath the pawpaw tree. By the 3rd month after my death, Rose had become a shadow of herself. Her eyes were hollow, her hair tangled, her hands always trembling as if something cold clung to her skin. She didn't eat much anymore, only dry bread, only when Papa begged her to. But what she really fed on was fear. And I made sure she never ran out of it. It began one morning when she heard a knock at her door, soft, gentle, the way I used to knock before asking to come in. Knock, knock, knock. She froze. Her spoon slipped from her hand and clattered onto the floor. She waited. The sound came again. Knock, knock, knock. Her voice cracked. Who's there? No one answered. But the door creaked open by itself, slowly, as though pushed by invisible fingers. And then, faintly, she heard my voice. You can't hide forever, Rose. She fell to her knees, covering her ears. Papa rushed in at the sound of her sobbing, but I faded before he saw me. He thought she was sick. He didn't know sickness couldn't twist a woman like guilt could. She began to hear footsteps upstairs, small ones, light and careful, the way I used to walk in my bare feet. At first, she would rush up, panting, expecting to see someone. But she always found the hallway empty, my bedroom door wide open though she swore she had locked it. Inside, my toys were laid out in a perfect circle on the floor, my storybook open to a page I never finished reading. And on the wall, written faintly in chalk, were 3 words. Tell the truth. She rubbed it off, but it appeared again the next morning, darker this time. Everywhere she turned, there were reminders of me. My shoes in the cupboard. My laughter from the backyard. My humming in the still of dawn. And sometimes, when she walked past the pawpaw tree, a single voice would drift through the leaves. Justice, Rose, justice. The sound followed her even inside. She began to mutter back to it. I'll tell them soon, Amara. I promise. I just need time. But time was not hers anymore. The night she finally broke began with rain. Heavy, endless rain that soaked the ground and drummed on the roof like a heartbeat. She couldn't sleep. She lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling, every nerve alive with fear. Then she heard it. Soft at first, like a song carried by the wind, my lullaby. Mama's song. The one I used to hum when I was scared. Rose sat up, trembling. Stop it, please stop. But the song grew louder. It came from the hallway. Then from the kitchen. Then from everywhere, The walls, the ceiling, even the air. She screamed, "What do you want from me, Amara? What do you want?" And then I answered. For the first time, I let her see me clearly. I stepped out from the darkness by the door, my white nightdress stained, my eyes calm and deep. The candlelight flickered against my face. "You already know what I want," I said softly. "Justice." She stumbled back, covering her face. "Please, please, no more. I'll tell him. I'll tell everyone." The wind howled through the room, knocking the candle over. And when it went dark, I whispered close to her ear. "Then do it." That night, she didn't sleep. She sat on the floor until morning, whispering to herself, rocking back and forth like a child. When Papa came downstairs, she looked up at him with hollow eyes and said, "She's still here." And I was, watching, waiting, until she kept her word. Because until Rose spoke the truth aloud, my haunting would not stop. The dead child she buried beneath the pawpaw tree would keep walking the halls of her house. Softly, quietly, demanding what she stole. Justice. Morning crept into the house like a confession waiting to happen. For the first time in months, Rose didn't hide behind the curtains. She sat at the table, pale and still, a piece of paper before her and Papa watching from the doorway. "I can't keep it inside anymore," she said. Her voice shook, but she didn't look away from the paper. She wrote slowly, every word like a wound reopening. How she'd hated me for the love Papa still gave me. How she'd mixed the poison. How she'd buried me beneath the pawpaw tree and prayed the earth would forget. When the pen slipped from her hand, she whispered, "I'm sorry." Papa reached for the page, read it, and the room fell into a silence that felt holy. He called the police himself. They came before noon. Neighbors gathered outside, whispering. Rose didn't resist. She only looked back once, as if she expected to see me standing there. And I was. The house felt different after she left. Lighter. The air no longer hummed with grief. Papa planted lilies around the pawpaw tree and built a small white cross there with my name carved into it. That night, for the first time since my death, I felt warmth. Mama stood beside me, her hand gentle on my shoulder. "You did well," she said. "You can rest now." I looked toward the window one last time. The moonlight spilled across the yard, touching the flowers and the earth that held my bones. Somewhere far away, Rose's voice echoed faintly, crying, praying, but I wasn't angry anymore. Justice had come, and the truth had been spoken. I turned toward the light that waited for me. "Good night, Papa," I whispered. "Good night, Mama." And as the first bird sang outside, I faded softly into the dawn.